Okay, so welcome to the sixth session of Learning R. And in this session, we'll talk about joining two data frames. Right? So far, whatever we have dealt is just with single data frame. And in today's session, we'll work with joining two different data frames. Right? But the important information here is that two different uh, data frames must have at least one column which is similar, right? And then it's easy for us to join. Or else there are multiple other ways that you can use to join. For example, you can use cbind function, but cbind function may not work in some cases. Why? Because it will throw an error where if there is like mismatch in the number of rows. Okay. In that case, basically this join functions really help. Imagine I have a customer data set. In the customer data set one, I have customer ID, and I have only the information related to their purchases. Right? And there is another data set which has the customer ID, but also has the personal details of the customers as well, which part of the country they are from, and how many times did they come to the store in a month, and they're like quite um, demographic. They have quite a lot of demographic data. And now your manager asks you to merge these two data frames and then produce a report. Right? And then at that point of time, there are few commands that can help from base R. In the base R, the command that can help you is merge. Okay, so which was not put up in the file, right? So you can just write it up when I am doing it. So merge command helps you to do it. Helps you to combine two different data frames. Okay. Yes, we are always learning a dplyr, and also we are learning tidyverse package, right? So I think we are yet to touch upon tidyverse package, and I'll inform you that tidyverse package has dplyr as well as ggplot in it. It has quite a lot of different packages within tidyverse, so it will help you to really work faster. Instead of having dplyr, instead of having ggplot, installed at different instances, you can install tidyverse altogether, and within tidyverse you have ggplot as well as ggplot2 as well as dplyr. And but if you want to access dplyr package, because the functions that you are using for this particular session will come from dplyr, so hence you just need to load up dplyr, right? And then that will basically work because you have tidyverse package. So as I told you, merge command helps you to combine two different data frames, but there are different ways that you can also do. For example, say a merge command is one command, but you need to tweak the command to join the data frames. However, if you're trying to join the data frames with your intuition, and you don't want to mess up with your code and other things, there are few other commands that comes handy. And one is called as inner join, semi join, left join, anti join, and full join from dplyr package. Okay, we'll see that one by one. And today I have most of the sessions like a kind of demo session, right? And not something related to kind of hands-on. Okay, in order to work with these functions, you're supposed to load dplyr package. So I did that, and I think that's also available in your file, right? And now I'm creating two different data frames, right? So one data frame has a name, alignment, gender, and publisher, okay? And I basically these four are vectors at the moment, okay? But I am using the data.frame command to combine all the four and put it in here. Okay? And then similarly, I'm creating another data frame called as publisher data frame. So, however, this data frame is not complete. Okay. So now the task is to create a data frame for publishers. So add these two vectors to create a new data frame called publishers. You try and accomplish this in your system, and then once you're done with it, just put an S in the chat box, and then we will begin with the other thing, right? If you're not able to understand what's going behind here in this part, while I'm creating a data frame, just let me know. Okay, so we have two data frames. Data frame 1 has 4 vectors in it, and I'm naming the data frame as superheroes. Okay, and the data frame 2 is publishers, which is not created yet, and you're supposed to create it, right? And this publisher data set, no, the data frame has 2 vectors in it. Okay, try and complete that. Once you're done with that, just let me know. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks for your feedback. It's like fairly easy, not really difficult. And if you're just comfortable with R now, you'll be able to achieve it faster. And also have a look at the structure of the data frames. By even within the R Markdown file, for example, say you don't have to just run the chunks. You can also run the code individually. And in my case, my environment is empty. I can run the chunk as such, or else I can just go a single line or select lines and then run the chunks. Run the code. That is also possible. So now you can see in the R environment I have, since I just use Control Enter, and I created these 4 vectors. Okay. And similarly, I can have a look into the structure of the data frame. Okay. Okay, so I think anyone having any question in terms of creating data frame? You already have an example over there on the top, and that should be easy.
Yeah, done.
Yes, okay, thanks, Naveen. All right, so let's go for the answer then at the moment, instead of wasting time. Right, so we have 2 vectors, right? So, and I'm supposed to add these 2 vectors to a data frame. And there are multiple ways that you can achieve it, but let's go with the example that we have here. Publisher, because that's the only difference here. I am adding one more S to it, and say C of sorry, data frame publisher here let's compound it and have a look at the structure of the publishers. Yes. Okay, so I am supposed to create those 2 vectors, and then now if you look at the structure of the data frames, and they are quite different. If you look at the structure of the superheroes, and it has 7 observations with 4 variables. And if you look at this data frame 2 with like the publisher's data frame, and you can see it has 3 observations and 2 variables. Now, one common fact, like one common column that you can observe here is like the publisher, and there is there's some difference in the column, right? You can see Marvel is there, DC is there, but Dark Horse Comics is not present in this data frame 2. And similarly, image uh, publisher is not present in data frame 1. But there is some sort of overlapping results with DC is present in Marvel. Sorry, DC is present in the data frame 1, and Marvel is also present in data frame 1. Right? Now I need to combine these two information, right? So I know uh, uh, name, alignment, gender is there, and just need to add this year found information to this data set, right? There are multiple ways that I can use join. I can perform this operation, right? If I want all the data to be in, and I need to do some function like full join, but if I need few information from uh, data frame X, if I say like data frame 1, then I perform a different operation. Okay, let's have a look into it one by one. And I'm finally going to read what is given here, right? So, for example, say inner join is for the first function that we look here. In the inner join function, it basically returns all the rows from X where there are matching values in Y. And also, it returns all the columns from X and Y. Right? What it basically says is that if there is matching rows between these two data frames, and only those things will be retained. And if there is no matching rows, that will be rejected from your pool. Like when you're pulling up the data set, that the rows that is not really matched up with the data frame X, and that will be removed. Okay, and simply if you put it in the inner join XY combines all the columns present in either X or Y, but only retains rows that are present in both data frames. Okay. Let's have a look into it. And this is also called as mutating join. Okay, so it says it is not finding the function, which means I am supposed to load a dplyr. Just go and load it. So once you load that one, now this should work. Okay. What kind of difference do you see in the data frame? And the data frame has Marvel and DC, but not image and you can see image and dark horse comics because they are not matched up. Because there is no matching information for this particular function. So only if there is a match, and then those rows will be returned, right? And also you can see we talked about recycling earlier in the case when we talked about vector, right? In 1939, which is for Marvel, right? It's based on index it is taking, right? Marvel is in second place, and year found is in second place. So Marvel company has is founded in the year 1939. And in this one is repeated 3 times, which is like recycled, and it is recycled based on the publisher name, right? And the publisher name is common between these two data frame, right? And hence this year founded information is the only new thing that needs to be added to this data frame. Hence it's added to it, but also recycle it so that it replicates in 2 other instances where the value is missing. Okay, right. So this is the first joining, information on joining 2 data frames, and also I would want to show it visually how that will look like. Okay, because it is a bit difficult to understand sometimes how these two joining, no, how the joining functions work. Let me share you the file now. Okay, look at this image here. This talks about the inner join function, and it means if there is a matching information and those two are presented here. So 1 and 2 is presented here. Matching rows are presented from X and Y, but the rows that are not matched is not present in the output, and it's these two are omitted. It's quite helpful, right? So when you are when some piece of the information is missing, and then you don't want that to be in the final data set, and then use inner join. Okay, let's go to the next part where we'll talk about semi join. And semi join is filtering join. Okay, the semi-join returns the columns from X and retains rows of X that are also present in Y. Okay, so instead of like having a kind of definition, I would normally recommend you to do this particular operation in your in your system and see what kind of output that you're getting. And from the output, we can infer how this semi-join function works. Right? And try to apply semi-join on superheroes and publishers. And follow the same structure, right? So just type superheroes first and publishers second, right? If you mismatch, and basically you're just changing the X and Y principle, right? So superheroes is considered as X here, and publishers is considered as Y here. And if you just mismatch it, and the results will be different, right? And I leave that to you. You can take it to your take it as kind of a practice and try to change those two positions, and then see what kind of results you are getting. Okay, and work on this. And once you're finished with this particular task, and just put an S. And it's fairly easy. It's not difficult. And if you have joined late, please remember that you're supposed to complete all the other chunks, especially the previous chunk, like completing this code chunk, it starts at line 32 and ends at like 49. And you should also have this code. And later, you don't have to perform inner join. Like if you can also perform that one if you want, because that is already existing. And then get into the semi-join part. Done, perfect. That's really nice. Let's see. Let's wait for a few more minutes, like maybe a couple of minutes, and if someone else is also able to accomplish it, then that will be nice. And in between, we can have the picture of.
Bala, we can use this semi-join
Yeah.
as the right and left join kind of stuff. Like we have to just switch the data frame. So first data frame, the value we'll get from the first data frame only, right? The matching values, matching rows.
Yeah. So let's work
If we
on that and
switch,
then see the results. Okay.
if we
Yeah.
switch,
If you switch it, and then basically it changes your output.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. And that's why, like, what I'm planning to do is like I'm going to leave it to you, so you can experiment it in your system, and then see what kind of results you're getting, and that will helps you to understand this a bit better, right? But normally what I do is like I basically try to see in the sense of like what kind of output I need. Right? So at the end of the day, if I need every single results to be there, and then I do a full join, and for example, say I miss the column information that I want from the data frame 2 in this particular example, right? Because in this it says semi-join returns the columns from X only, right? Which means it will just retain the columns of superheroes, but not the publishers, right? And retains the rows of X that are also present in Y. Imagine if there is some information that is like kind of matching, and that will also be present, but in this case it is not working, right? Why? Because the column information is not quite informative for them. So, but it basically merged based on publisher information. And also still we miss the information like you can see
Here,
image is not there, and also we are not seeing dark horse comics, right?
Okay, okay. Because
Which
both are
means,
not matching.
yeah, both are not matching, so hence that is also omitted from your result. Okay, so we need to be a bit careful that when you're trying to establish semi-join, and which means you are trying to approach with a filtering join function. Right? So that is what people normally say in this R world. Right? So the data that is not, especially you will not get any column from Y, right? But you will get all the columns of X, and only the matching columns of Y, especially the rows, that will be matched here. And hence, if that is missing information of one of the columns, right, the ones that you're taking, like publisher, imagine that you're trying to identify the publisher information based on the column Y, then that is useful, right? Else it is not useful. Okay, so only it's going to give you the results of the missing, that is missing values in your data set, data frame one, and but those information are present in Y, and you just want this published information from Y to be present in no, to be present in this X data frame, and that then it is useful, or else it's not useful. Okay, let's move on to the next part. Let's call the left join. This is a mutating join, not like a filtering join, right? And let's have a look into it as well and approach it and try to establish left join, and then try superheroes, and then what you will have like some publishers, right? Because now I think it's a bit easy for you to understand in terms of coding, because it's not really hard. Okay, and now it says some sort of warning. Don't worry about that. And there's nothing like left join print, and it is not printed. Oops. Okay, so it's a bit slow now in my system. So what happened in this case? In the sense, left join combines all the columns in the data frame X with those data frame Y, but retains only rows from X. Right. So whatever is there on the left side of your data frame, right? So just left join is basically which is on the left of your command. So X is on the left and Y is on the right. Right. So imagine that. So it's going to retain the rows from X, but not from Y. Okay. Let's see whether it is executing. Yeah. So which means it is taking information. So it is combining these two data set into one, but it just retains the data from, like, especially the row values from X, not from Y. And you can see that, for example, here, in this case, we got dark horse comics present in the output, but not image. Okay. And intuitively now you will be able to get what will happen in the right hand situation. When you try to do a right join, what will happen? Can anyone say that?
I should take only the rows from the right column, right data frame. Sorry, the Y.
So the Y data frame, right? So let's try and do it. Superheroes, comma, publishers. Okay. It also throws a warning. You are supposed to understand this warning as well, because it is informing you that how it is joining the data frame. And here you're not typically giving okay, so what kind of column that it needs to identify and then match, right? And that's the beauty of dplyr, right? But when you're trying to merge two data frames with the base R, and you're supposed to say with which column you're supposed to merge, okay, and you're supposed to explicitly say that, but you don't have to do that with dplyr. And it will basically try and compare these two data frames and then merge it, right? And we'll also have some sort of difficulty in terms of there is some sort of mismatched name, and we can handle that one easily with dplyr. Okay, we'll talk about that a bit later. And let's see the results, whether we are getting some information like we expected. So Typically, we must have image here, but not dark horse comics that we got in the left join. Takes a while in my system. Okay. I think some of you joined late, right? So do we have the RMD file, like everyone in general? Let me put it again if you don't have it. Okay, so now you can see as we expected, right? So the image information is included, and but not this dark horse comics, okay, because it is performing a right job. And what you can also see is that when it is not finding any values in the other data frame, it is replacing that value with the NAs, which means like it is not finding any information over there. So it is basically saying it is not available. So NA is not available. Okay, and that's imputed automatically by dplyr, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, and let's go for anti-join. In this anti-join, it returns all the rows from X where there are not matching values in Y, and keeping just columns of X. So it's going to just retain the columns of X and only going to return you the rows from X where there are not matching values in Y. Okay, so try and perform the anti-join and see the results. So okay, test underscore anti-join. I think let wait. Okay. Okay, so what happened here? So in this case, it is able to find a matching value for publisher in the data frame X. Okay, and only that is placed here. In various whatever information that is available, okay, in the sense it can also match, but which is not present in Y is not, which is present in Y is not given here. Okay, which we can also see from the actual data frame. For example, say when we go to the actual data frame here, dark horse comics has matching information from X, but the image does not have any matching information, so that is not present. And DC and Marvel is also there, but it is in present. But the anti-join works in a different way. It omits all the other rows, all the other rows which has matching information of X and Y. Right? Only when there is a mismatch, and then it tries to match it, and then those information is present here. Okay. And I honestly, I do not really know when we will use the anti-join, but it depends on the purpose, right? So if you need that particular information, right, and if you're trying to match these two data frames, and you just want to have the matching informations to be presented as a new data frame, and it helps at that point of time, right? But predominantly, I use the full join. The full join helps me to combine every single thing into one. And wherever there's missing information, it replaces with NAs. Okay. If you look at that, if you sorry, full join. You can see now I get a kind of a data frame that is merged together really well. In a sense, it says NAs, it replaces NAs in all the parts, right? And also it produces all the rows from X and Y, and it gives me a perfect combination of both the data frames. Okay, and I normally use this one. Okay, so okay, so did you run? If there's a question in the chat box, I'll just address that one and come back. Like, if you have any questions in terms of understanding joins, and just let me know in the meanwhile. So if you are already familiar with if you're already familiar with SQL functions, right? If you're working with SQL databases, and I think this is fairly easy, right? And also let's have a look at how this look at the pictures of these joints and then understand it in a better way. Okay? And um, I think Arun has a problem, and we'll try to sort it out. I think we can work together and sort it out. Arun, can you share the screen to us?
Sure, Bala. I'll share my screen. Post disabled attendee. You'll have to stop sharing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So done.
I guess you disabled screen sharing for the attendees. Is there an option on the screen?
I think you can. Who can share? Okay. Yep. Now we can share. I hope.
I guess now I can share. You able to see the screen?
Yeah. It's visible now. Okay, so can you just run the code one like sequentially? For example, say you run this first chunk,
Okay.
library dplyr. Yeah,
Okay.
do that one
Just
first.
clean it. Yes. Yes.
Okay, and just go a bit
Run
further down. Yeah, complete this data frame, right? So this is not
Correct.
complete. Line 45 is not complete.
45.
It's like you say publishers.
Publishers is there.
No. That's a data. That's a variable name, but it's not a data frame. So we need publishers equal to data.frame, and say publisher, comma, year, and scope founded. And can you just copy and paste it and then run it? Then everything will work, I hope, because that data frame is missing.
Oh, right. So did you share any files actually?
No, it's like it's no. When I ran the session, I told it asked it to complete, asked you all to complete.
Right. Okay. Maybe I missed that.
Yeah. So once you complete this particular task, right, in a sense, if you are able to create publishers, but you need to put this information in line 45, like 46 now. Cut that one. Yeah, put it over there. Now run the chunk. Go to the top of the chunk. Yeah. Can you just press the green arrow here? Yeah. Now you got the data frame ready.
Oh, okay. I got it. Okay.
So now you can run the commands. And publisher is with S at the end. Yeah. And yeah. You can run the chunk in total. You can just use the green color arrow mark here.
Which green color arrow?
Like in the chunk, like for example, say every chunk has a run button.
Okay.
If you just go down.
Yes, got it. Okay.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
you just go to
this chunk.
the inner join chunk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can work on that. Yep.
Oh, okay, right.
Click that one. Yeah, it
Right.
works now, right? Right. Okay. So let's also look at in a picture, in a pictorial format of how these joins work. And let's I'll
Thanks,
stop.
well, I just stopped sharing.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so now you can see my screen. I hope you can see how the left join works and the right join works and full join works here, right? The left join, you can see there are matching rows available. 1 and 2 is present here, and 3 is replaced with NA, but the fourth, like this number 4 information from the Y is not present. So left join basically works. It produces rows of X, but not rows of Y. Okay, and if you look at the right join, it works in the opposite way. So it produces the rows of Y, but not the rows of X. And the full join, it does not really care. So it tries to join every single thing together, and it pulls up every single data. If there is missing data, and then it adds it up. Okay, and that's what the full join. But the anti-join is a bit tricky to understand. Is the anti-join will just produce values if there is a matching information. Okay, so whatever it's like it is present in both the data frames, that is basically omitted, right? The ones that is not really present in these both data frames but has a matching value, and that will be presented to you at the end. Okay, so this is about joining data frames. Any questions here, guys? Right. Okay, let's wait for. Imagine that I have another data frame, right? So let's go back here, and I just leave it to you now in terms of I'm going to change this to up at the moment. So you have one.
Just a moment, Paula. We are not seeing your R IDE.
Yeah, I can understand you. That's the problem with Zoom. Perfect. Yeah, now you can see, right?
Yeah.
I'm going back to the data frame. So for example, say we had something like this earlier. Right? Now we have matching names in 2 data frames, right? So in the data frame 1, publisher is there, and its similar name is also available within this data frame 2. And imagine I want to change this to pub. So there's now the names are missing. It's like there is no matching names. Okay, so it becomes a bit tricky, right? And how can you handle this? So you can see there's a cropping up because it's sorry. You can see quite a lot of errors are coming up now. And now, how can you handle this with your dplyr function? Right? And what I would recommend you to do is like you can go to the help function, right? Try help on join, and then find an answer for it. Okay, and then that's the final task for the day, because this is not it's not a huge task to in terms of like combining 2 data frames. But the other way around is like you can basically use cbind function to edit, and also you can also use merge function, which is from the base R. And I also recommend you to look for the help file of merge function. So and then you'll get a merge 2 data frames. You can also look at the help file, right? But at the moment, I would recommend you to work on the task, right? Go to the chunk number, not this, chunk 2 of your, no, chunk 3, where you're looking at the data frames. Change the names of the vector, and then try to work with it. Yeah, the help is really helpful since the question mark. Right? You can. I think I forgot to inform you about how to get help with R. Right, I'll tell you that one as well. And if you are doing the task, like maybe just hold for a while and just look at how the help file can be accessed. Okay. I'll just add this one so that I can share it to you later. They are getting help in R. So that should be the new thing that we want to see. There are multiple ways that you can access help in R, and from RStudio, for example, there is a help button over there. If we go to tools, sorry, help on the top. If you go to the menu bar, in the menu bar, sorry, so menu bar, and to search and find help. Okay, so I'm going here, and then R help, and you click R help. That will basically go to this particular window. That's your help environment. Like this is actually called as files pane in general, but it also has multiple other things there. You can also see the preview of plot and other things, but you can also find help here. And the help that you need for example, I need help for merge. I can search. Okay, sorry, you're supposed to go here, merge, and when you just click that one, you can get help for that particular thing. Okay. And R, from the base R package, the base R, what they do is like you can basically use question mark, and if you're looking for help in terms of like, for example, join, and it will help you, like you're supposed to execute like a code, right? So you're supposed to press Control Enter in this one, or else just run the chunk, so it will get the help for this one here, right? So but in case sometimes if you're still struggling with, and if you're not getting any help, and maybe what, like for example, a median or something, you can also do a double question mark median, and it will also try to fetch it. Now it will match this particular phrase, median, and try to fetch the results. Okay. For some reasons, this double question marks are not really working now at the moment. Like it normally works, but sometimes it does not really work. It does not really fetch results as I expected. But it used to work when I started to learn R. So when I was learning R, and this double question marks works. And nowadays, I am not really finding any fruitful information from the double question marks. And even some people tell you that you can use double question marks, and nowadays you can just refrain from that ideology, but those things do not really work, right? And there is one more caution I can tell you about this help file, right? And imagine I am talking about join function, and that is from dplyr package. Okay? If I remove this dplyr package from our environment and try to ask a question with join, right? Imagine, say, structure underscore detect. Sorry, structure replace is from string R package, right? But now it is not showing up. But it's already there in my system. It is in the system. I have loaded up string R package, but it is not showing up. Why? Because that package is not loaded. So you are supposed to say library string R, and later on, if you try getting the help for that particular function, then it will show, right? So the documentation can be accessible. No, it's accessible when you load the package. Right? So you need to be a bit cautious when you're trying to get help within R. Okay? So the other things, like if you're just trying to say median or mean, and that will work because they are in the base R package. So when you load your system, now when you load your R for the first time, and you're loading up the base R, not the entire packages, right? So the help for those packages will not be available. So once you load up those packages, and the help files for those things will be available for you, right? And also there are a lot of documentations for R, and you can just basically go to the R documentation files as well. So for example, say if you try Vignity, of, for example, say, of string R. Okay, we click that one, and what's happening in your system? Like, give it a try because it's a bit slow here in my place. But if you try that one, what should happen is that it should throw a it, okay. Sorry, it should basically now pop up a new PDF file. Okay, or if it, so for example, say some of the packages basically have some dignity in the sense that they have a PDF file. Imagine that it puts, yeah. So I think you are supposed to use the double quotes on the top. For example, say use double quotes on the top of it, and then try. And then I think it will produce a new no, PDF file. It will pop up a PDF file for that particular package. Okay. For example, say when I tried for zoo package and it came with the PDF file from the system. Is it getting in your system as well? Just try it one. Try that one. For example, say when I tried Dignity for string R, now I have help file popped up instead of the PDF file where it talks about the entire string R package. It starts from the introduction. You can see introduction to string R, and it shows every single thing here. Okay, so I'm not really sure about Nick, so because I'm not aware of the other languages. It's I cannot really explain much on that. Okay, so that's a way that you can get help in R. Okay, so now let's work on the task. It's time to change the name and then get the help function for that particular perform full join. Okay, so it's better to perform full join. Perform full join. Okay, let me write that write the task here. So perform full join on superheroes publishers. So that's it. And get it like task. So something like assign any name so that you want. I am putting like test full. Go join superheroes publishers. And so far we know that, right? But we can also do something else. Okay, and maybe I'll just provide a hint, and you're supposed to use the by command in this full join. Okay, let's see if someone else got a result. Okay, so Anirudhan came up with a proper answer, so that's exactly what I wanted. Okay, so now you can use something called you start with concatenate and say pub is equal to publisher. Now, what the system will understand that, okay, so there are like two columns, but it has a missing name, but this is equal to this, and that's what we are indicating here. So publisher, like pub is equal to publisher, and when I perform this with this command, it basically runs a full join, right? Or else it will not happen. No, it will not produce the results that you want. Okay? And this is one trick that you can work with, right? And also, if you're you can basically add multiple other columns, right? The by function will help you to add multiple columns. For example, if you want to join with two columns information, and you can also basically give those two column names here, and that will help you to work with, right? And more information for on joining, and I gave kind of a small web link, and that can be used for learning more. Any questions here, guys? Because as I told you, as I promised, and this is a very short class for this week, and maybe I just want to know what kind of follow-up peak sessions we should have. Like, I think we are far more comfortable now with the data manipulation, and also subsetting data and joining data. And now we should get our hands dirty in terms of analyzing data. And my focus is this, where I would like to introduce you linear regression and logic regression, and maybe clustering because if you want to get into ML, clustering might be useful. And then probably even factor analysis is also fine. So these are the 4 things that I wish to cover, right? And if you're planning to get into the, sorry, I think I did reply to one person. Okay. So these are the 4 things that I want to cover. Okay, this will be covered in 4 weeks' time, and then we'll wrap up our learning. Right. So any questions here, guys, in terms of like, do you want anything else to be discussed in the class? These are the topics that I would like to discuss. For example, I would like to talk about linear regression, logic regression, and then clustering and factor analysis. And okay, let me tell you. So if you're looking for supervised learning, if in terms of machine learning algorithm and stuff, okay, so the first 2 topics is called supervised learning. The last 2, the clustering and factor analysis, is kind of unsupervised learning. If you're kind of a data scientist oriented guy, right? So if you want to get into that particular domain, and these 2 topics on the top, like linear logic regression, will give you a very basic introduction to supervised learning. Right? It's like, but this is ground basic, and machine learning is quite different from the approach of a data analyst. Okay, and where you'll have test and training model and other things. But if you get the grasp of the basics, which I teach here, but you will be, and definitely will be able to learn the other things easy. And clustering and factor analysis is basically classification of data, right? For example, if you have a pool of data, you want to split that data into a few groups, and where you will just apply clustering and factor analysis. Okay, and you can normally see that the KNN, K nearest neighbor clustering taught in machine learning, but the clustering that we will approach is very different. And but it's kind of fairly a very brief introduction to how KNN is done. And fact analysis is where this is again another classification tool where you just classify data based on some groups again. Okay, so can we cover data scrapping? Okay, sure. But I think that's not a difficult thing in terms of data web scrapping, right? And I'll just cover it up. For example, say we can scrap data of coronavirus data, like that is loaded in the website. And also if there is any R file that is uploaded in a web page and how to access it, right? And that can also be dealt. We will cover that shortly in the next week's session, and then we'll just move on to linear regression. Okay, right? Any questions, guys, in terms of like how we progress, and also how the lessons that we learned today, or even in the previous class? And if you don't have any questions, we can just leave for the day, and wish you good luck, and in terms of wish you a very nice weekend. Okay, cool. Let's see. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks. Have a nice weekend, Swati. Perfect. all good. Right. I'll share the file. I'll share the R markdown file soon. Okay. Thanks, Naveen. Thanks, Venkat. I'll see you all next week then. Have a nice weekend. But be ready for the linear regression. That's a bit hard to understand. Okay. Cheers. I'll see you next week. Bye bye. I'll close it down.
So why?
Any questions, Anirudh?
No, not at the moment. Maybe next week.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll see you next week. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.